Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the 2022 Toyota Tundra. We're going to go over what we know so far in terms of the redesign. So we'll go over the specifications that we know up to this point, and then we'll get into whether or not it's worth waiting for, or if you should go and pick up a current generation Tundra. And so with all that being said, let's just get straight into the video. I'll start things off by going over the technical specifications of the new Tundra. And first off, Toyota hasn't really given us much information, so we've got to talk about the previous generation Tundra to at least give us some sort of idea. So right now the Tundra has a payload capacity of 1,730 pounds, well, the max payload capacity, and then a max towing capacity of 10,200 pounds. I feel like it's pretty safe to assume that the new Tundra is going to be right around that range for payload and towing, if not a little bit more. Now, the other big change is Toyota has been talking about changing the rear suspension of the Tundra. So right now they use leaf springs in the back, but they're talking about going to a coil suspension system. So you guys know that with Ram's whole half-ton lineup, they have 5-link coil suspension in the back end, and then the new Ford Raptor is using 5-link coil suspension. And I wouldn't be surprised if every single truck maker has a similar system in the next 5 to 10 years. And it sounds like Toyota is going to do something similar to that. Now, there are some downsides to using coil suspension. It's harder to get a higher payload capacity out of that system, but then you also get a much smoother ride. And so as long as they put enough time and effort and engineering into the system, then they can kind of even it out where they get that smooth ride, but then also still make the truck capable from a payload standpoint. Now, the biggest change and probably the most controversial change is going to be to the powertrain. So right now the Tundra uses a naturally aspirated 5.7 liter V8. In terms of the power outputs with that engine, it's 381 horsepower and then 401 pound-feet of torque. It goes through a 6-speed automatic, gets the world's worst fuel economy. It's rated for 13 around town and then I believe 17 on the highway. It's just absolutely atrocious. And that's one of the big downsides of the Tundra, is the fact that it has horrible fuel economy, but people purchase it because of the reliability and durability of the Tundra. Now, this is why things get controversial. They're getting rid of that engine completely. There's not going to be a naturally aspirated V8 is what Toyota's saying. It sounds like they want to do a hybrid powertrain. That's what they've been continually saying in all of their press releases, that the Tundra is going to be a hybrid. But Toyota has recently released the new Land Cruiser, and the new Land Cruiser has a twin-turbo V6, and that engine puts out 409 horsepower and then 479 pound-feet of torque. It's paired to a 10-speed automatic. It's not paired to any sort of hybrid system whatsoever. And so if they're putting this in the Land Cruiser, and the Land Cruiser also had the 5.7 V8, then I'm guessing that they're also going to throw that in the Tundra. So I imagine that will probably be the entry-level engine, is this twin-turbo V6. And then you'll probably be able to upgrade it to a hybrid system if you want to get a little bit better fuel economy. And maybe the hybrid system will also be able to tow a little bit more. But sometimes that's hard because you add some weight with hybrid systems. And so a lot of times the extra weight then lowers the payload, which then ends up lowering the towing capacity because, right, you have to be in a certain ratio with both of those. And so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's the big change. That's the big controversy is with this powertrain. And here's what I have to say about that powertrain and why I'm not too worried. So on the hybrid side of things, I can't really talk because they really haven't released anything. But with this twin turbo V6, they already have it in the Lexus LS 500, and they haven't really had any issues with it in that car. It's a great powertrain. I love how smooth it is. It's really quick as well. Tons of low-end torque, perfect for a truck. And so I think from a reliability standpoint, yeah, it may not be as reliable as the old 5.7 V8, but I feel like it's still going to be really reliable and robust, and it's going to make the truck so much more capable from a pulling perspective, and then it's just going to make it more drivable because it'll have so much more torque compared to the 5.7 V8. I mean, you're literally up 78 pound-feet of torque. And on top of that, it makes it more competitive compared to the other manufacturers because Ram's 5.7 liter V8 puts out 395 horsepower and then 410 pound-feet of torque. So it's up on horsepower and torque compared to the Tundra right now. And then Ford has 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. So again, it's up on both figures. And then Chevy's 6.2 V8 has 420 horsepower and then 460 pound-feet of torque. And so every truck manufacturer right now has a more powerful engine, and on top of that they all get better fuel economy than the Tundra. And so the Tundra really is lagging quite a bit. And so with this new powertrain and kind of bring it up to date, Aside from the powertrain perspective and the capability perspective, they are also going to redo the exterior of the truck, so it's going to look a little bit more modern, and you guys can see that throughout the video with the pictures I've put up. And then as for the interior, some sources have said that they're not going to change a massive amount with the interior. It might have like a new infotainment system, new gauge cluster, but a lot of it is going to look somewhat similar. And I mean, that's just kind of what Toyota does. They don't redo everything a massive amount. They kind of just keep a lot of stuff the same and then make slight changes. And I mean, the fact that they're already doing a completely new powertrain, I'm not exactly sure they're going to go crazy with the interior, and so we'll see what happens. Again, I've said this in other videos with new Toyotas. Look at the newer models like the Highlander, for example, what they've done interior wise with that, and even the new Sienna. I think that they're going to carry that stuff over into the trucks and the SUVs as they're redesigning it. And so kind of expect that with the new Tundra from an infotainment system perspective, and then with an interior layout perspective, and then materials and design and all that kind of stuff. Now let's get into whether or not this new Tundra is worth looking into. So first off, since it is going to be a first-year vehicle, there probably will be a few reliability kinks that Toyota has to work out, but I don't think they're going to be major. Toyota has this brand image they have to keep of longevity and reliability, and if they release an unreliable vehicle, that's just going to completely kill their image, especially with the Tundra, right? The Tundra is like their pinnacle of reliability, and that's why they haven't changed the truck in literally, like, I think it's been 10, 20, I mean, it's been forever. But aside from that, yes, there probably will be a few kinks and everything, so if you don't want to deal with that, then just wait for the second year to come out. But aside from that, I think this truck's going to be worth it. Yes, it's a little bit sad that it's not going to have a big naturally aspirated V8 anymore, but this twin turbo V6, especially if they end up putting that powertrain into the Tundra, is such a good powertrain, and I prefer the drivability of engines like that to the naturally aspirated engines, especially living at elevation here in Utah, right? Where most of the places I'm at are between 4,500 and 5,500 feet elevation. With that twin turbo engine, it's just going to perform so much better. And even at lower elevations, right, you're going to get low end torque compared to the naturally aspirated V8, where you have to kind of wind it out to get into that torque. And so just overall, it's going to drive so much better. It's going to get better fuel economy, right? It's going to have a more modern transmission, so it's going to shift smoother. And then on top of that, if they do add that 5-link coil suspension to the back end, it's going to ride a lot smoother. And so it's just going to feel like a much nicer, more modern truck. And it's actually going to be something that can compete with the American brands, because right now the Tundra really doesn't compete. The biggest selling thing for the Tundra right now is, again, the reliability and also the price to an extent, because a fully loaded Tundra is quite a bit less expensive than any of the American brands fully loaded. If you get pretty much the top of the line package, you're still usually sub $60,000, whereas if you get the top line package for an F-150 or for a Ram, then you're easily over $70,000. And I mean, the F-150's even jumped to over $80,000 for a fully loaded limited. So from a pricing perspective, that's another huge pull with the Tundra, is the fact that the highest package is quite a bit less expensive than the American brands. But again, between the fact that it has such an old engine and transmission, gets horrible fuel economy, has a dated interior and exterior, kind of makes it so that people don't really take it too seriously. But I think that this will bring people back, and especially considering the placing that Chevy is at with their interior and all the complaints there. If Toyota just steps up the interior of this Tundra just a little bit to where it's nicer than the Chevy, then we're gonna be in a situation where we're going to have a non-American brand that people are going to be just, I would imagine, flocking to, and they're going to sell so many more Tundras, because it's going to be like, oh, well, this has all the same capabilities as the other three brands, and on top of that, it doesn't have the worst interior anymore, and it doesn't get the worst fuel economy, and it's super reliable. And so yeah, I think that this is the right step. I'm hoping that they do it right, and I think it'll end up being worth it in the long run, especially if you own a Tundra right now, because right, the differences with the powertrain and the fuel economy are going to be massive. And then on top of that, since it's going to have all these added capabilities, it'll actually be able to compete against the American brands. And so yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. And so we'll see what Toyota does for the official specs on it once they officially release it, but this is at least what we know so far. Now that's going to sum things up for this video, going over what we know so far with the new 2022 Toyota Tundra. As always, if you're shopping for the first time, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. And then if you feel like my videos are of value to you, I'm gonna include a link to my Patreon in the description down below. I'd really appreciate your support over there as well. And yeah, I'll see all of you in the next video.